Good evening, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us for a very special history hub today. Look at this. We sold out tonight. Give yourself a round of applause.
So tonight is not just any history hub. We're welcoming the McMenamins artist here for the 40th anniversary of McMenamins itself, which is pretty astounding. So we have some of the most prolific, talented, versatile, and unique artists here tonight. Some of the core artists who have worked with McMenamins for a long time. So I wanted to introduce them to you before we. Anyway, we have a lot to cover, the 40 years that we're going to look at tonight. So without any further ado, let me welcome to you Jenny, Joyce, Eona Skelton, Myrna Yoder, Cleo Hehn, that's Cleo Hehn, and Lillian Ripley. So, I was just wondering if all of you could go around and just introduce yourself, your background in art, and when you first started doing art with McMenamins.
Am I starting?
Yeah, you can start with you.
All right, I'm Lillian Ripley. I am the most, not necessarily youngest in age, but youngest here. I think I've only been here for 5 years. They know dates, I know. But yeah, I started with the Elks Temple, and I've been doing art pretty much my entire life. I studied with an oil painting teacher when I was 10, and I just didn't stop.
My name is Cleo Hehn, and I've been a performance artist for 8 years. I grew up drawing, and I have a degree in fine art. And also, my uncle Lyle was an artist for McMenamins for over 30 years. So I grew up around his beautiful art. So that's where I got my start.
I am Myrna Yoder. I have a master's of fine arts in printmaking and ended up back in Portland and had a friend who was managing one of the 8 original pubs and needed a chalkboard drawn and then needed something painted, and I just told him I wasn't a painter and started painting. That was 32 years ago.
Hi, Eona Skelton. I've been painting art for the company for 15 years. Before that, I was a busker, and I was doing chalkboards also. And Myrna and Jenny saw my work. They asked if I could do painting as well, and I said, I did grow up drawing, painting, and sculpting. My parents are both sculptors. So I've been doing art all my life, and here I am doing an amazing dream.
I am Jenny Joyce, and I first started working for the company 30 years ago. And some of you remember an artist named Joe Potter, who worked, a terrific guy, very instrumental in establishing a mural program in Portland. And he was an artist for McMenamins. And he called me up one day and said, "Hey, the plant farm has been bought by a guy named Mike McMenamin, and he needs artists to paint doors. What do you think? You want to go paint doors?" So one thing led to another, and I started painting for the company, just painting doors, piecework, and loved it, fell in love with it. I had done a variety of different art jobs before this, including artists in schools. So, coming to the McMenamins opened me up in so many ways, and it's been a wonderful, fantastic journey for me. Just a great gift in my life.
I'll just say there might be some of you who are wondering who I am. And I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Alicia Scholl, and I work with the McMenamins History Department. So it's been a real honor to learn about all of this art through all of the locations over the years. And I just really thank the artists for being here to explain even more about it. But if you look at the McMenamins Instagram, Facebook, the main page, there's a lot of interesting background, even more than all of what we could cover tonight. But since you mentioned Jenny Edgefield, we have a picture back here of what Edgefield looked like in 1990, right before the Mike and Brian McMenamin bought it. So can you tell us like what it was like working in there in that early days?
Well, in the early days, the only, I started working when they were beginning to get the first floor done, because they did it piecemeal. They had the pub, and they had the winery in the basement, so they had begun to really finish the first floor. And, the other floors they had been vandalized heavily, lots of graffiti. Lot of it was used, yeah, it was depressing. And it was hard to believe this could ever be restored and resuscitated.
So from my understanding, it was kind of scary in there too with all the questionable graffiti. So
Oh, yeah.
can you tell me about what's happening here?
This was, I think, a work in progress party before it really opened, the first floor opened, and it just threw a gigantic party. And had bikers and belly dancers and music and refreshments. It's really amazing that they managed to pull these things off in the middle of a project. But gave everybody, it reestablished the joy of opening this place.
The way that Mike put it to me when he was describing it was that the bagpipes and chase the ghosts out.
Yeah.
All of that.
It's like, I have a specific story about that. Yeah, okay, this is a painting that I did in 2020, to commemorate, basically an exorcism that they performed at Edgefield. So there was a pentagram that had been spray painted on the floor in one of what would become a hotel room. So they wanted to get the bad energy out of there, and so I think it was a dozen or so bagpipers went into that room and stood in a circle and played Amazing Grace. And apparently the walls were shaking. I mean, I think about just having that many bagpipers in one small room. Yeah, so this painting kind of commemorates that moment where they were sort of calling the heavens to get the bad energy out of the room. And that's what this painting is. This painting is in that room. If your room is at Edgefield, then it's called Amazing Grace.
I would say that adding all the artwork and murals too even enhanced the vibration of the place even more. And Jenny, you told me this was one of the first pieces you did.
Yeah, it's the first floor I did, and I had said to Mike McMenamin, why don't I just start with natural history, doing scenes from the gorge and birds. So that's what I did at first, and it was a way for me to feel comfortable getting started. And anyway,
And then Myrna, this is one of your early murals.
Yeah, that was from the second round of renovations where they did the second and third floor, renovated the second and third floor, and on the third floor, Mike wanted what he called a river of art. And there were 6 artists, and he gave us each 120 feet of those hallways. And I believe it was like, he had a flat fee, and it was to be done in 2 weeks. And, so most of the designs were pretty simple, just because we were trying to get it done in that period of time. Joe Cutter took 3 years, but this is Joe. That's him working on a mural at the Baghdad, actually.
We have more on that, too, but so these are some of the other murals that are in Edgefield. If you've been in Edgefield, I'm sure you recognize.
That was Joe's mural.
Yeah, but I just wanted to highlight some of his artwork, which was so foundational as well. It's just so detailed and amazing.
These are paintings that are in the Black Rabbit at Edgefield. He did a whole series of paintings on Edgefield that hang the perimeter of the Black Rabbit restaurant. They're very detailed, so you want to go and spend time looking at us.
And this is another one he did at different location at East 19th Street Cafe.
Oregon Country Fair.
So what's that? Can you tell us?
Oregon Country Fair.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing about that is those, I think, are all portraits of people he actually knew. So those are not made up people, but they're people he knew that were from the country fair, connected to the country fair.
So I found a quote from him about this piece. So he said, "There's a lot of creative energy, performance art, music, spoken word, activists. A lot of people see it as a renewal. You might recognize the Flying Karamazov brothers, artists the Spoon Man, Baby Gramps, the Mud People, Ken Candy, Tom Naughty, the Bubble Guy, the Holy Modal Rounders, and Joe put himself in there as well, playing the trumpet."
Jerry up there.
So I wanted to play a short video that acknowledges one of the first artists, McMenamins, actually, and one of the well, I think Cleo could probably say better than me, but let's play the video. And when he was talking about the Crystal Hotel and what was the desert room, it reminded me of this painting of yours, Jenny, which is also a depiction of the desert room. Can you tell us about this one?
You know, this is like my version of the underworld in Portland at that time. And they're holding a martini glass, kind of in the center is a little rusty. And her friend Bob the pimp. And then I can't remember the name of all the characters, but Al Winter is there's 3 gentlemen standing over there on the left side, and Al Winter is in the center. And see, who do I remember? Oh, the guy in the white shirt with the yellow tie is Gorgeous George, who was a wrestler back in the 50s. And the owner of the bar and his wife are right behind Gorgeous George. And let's see. And I'm sorry, I can't remember the names of a lot of these people. I know I have it in my notes, and I promised that I would bring that with Lillian. Anyway, that was my interpretation of the desert room after hours. And apparently, Bill Rustin was a really nice lady, too.
I think she lived to be in her 80s, I think, actually. Oh, also, I wanted to make sure we show this. If you hadn't seen it last year. So another huge property that was transformed, of course, was the Crystal Ballroom. So this is a picture of what it looks like. Can you tell us about working in the crystal ballroom while it was being renovated?
Well, we actually, the artist got to get in there first and work in there first, which was the blessing and the curse. The blessing is that the crystal ballroom was built for ballroom dancing, and so the floor is on levers, so when you walk on it, it kind of bounces. And which meant when there's 100 people on it, you don't feel it so much, but when there's not, it moves a lot, and we were up on scaffolds. And we get down at the end of the day and step off the walking floor onto the regular floor, and we felt like we'd been on a boat all day.
You did? That's me.
And so we did a lot of, but, and then the curse of it was there was very few outlets and no heat, and we were painting in the middle of winter. So that was fun.
It was on, I don't know if there was a bathroom in the building. There might have been one in the on the first floor.
But it was scary. And we tried to wait until lunchtime and go down to Cassidy's and had to go to
It was, I think that was the hardest job I ever did for this one. It was so challenging, and things were just damp. Everything was damp, and it was hard to get the wall dry. You know, it was quite challenging.
We would stand, we would paint with a space heater between our feet pointed at the wall so that the heat would go up the wall and dry our paint while we were painting. That's how cold it was in the building. Which turns out was not a very big thing to do. We had to go back and repair those murals a lot because the foundation was not very good. Don't paint when paint won't dry. That's what we learned.
Well, the end result is fantastic. Here's a picture of Jenny working on this same mural. Here's the finished product of the James Brown concert.
That's great.
Didn't Byron, who manages all the acts coming into the crystal, said James Brown saw it and liked it.
Is this one yours, Myrna?
Yeah, that one's mine.
Can you tell us about this one?
So, this was about this time, Tim Hills was hired for the history department. But before that, we had to do all our own research. So it wasn't, where do I put it? As years moved forward, Mike became more and more interested in the stories that were being told, having actual people that were connected to the history and the properties. But at this point, we still didn't necessarily have to do that. So what I was trying to capture in this particular one was the space was going to be used for music. And so I was more trying to evoke a feeling than actually illustrating a story or a specific people from your history.
And then this is another mural in the Crystal Ballroom by Joe Connor.
It's so great to get to look at them like this because they're up high in a venue that's usually dark.
I think he must definitely be ripping on the psychedelic 60s era of the Crystal Ballroom here. And then here's one here with Jenny with you mural there. What was the inspiration for this cosmic mural here?
This is like what Myrna was saying. We weren't really tied to illustrating anything about the history. And the thing that really inspired me was that it's a circle, painting in a circle. And I wanted to use that shape. And I thought, why not use the faces of the moon and have I'd call that person the cosmic juggler. And So that really is all that I can't say as anything to music. I need to say it has something to do with the music of the spheres. I don't know.
Sounds good.
Yeah, music of the spheres, there you go. Anyway. It was, thoroughly enjoyed painting it. So. That was my first mural there, and it scared me to death. Thinking about doing it, I had no idea to pull anything off, but, I think we all have that feeling sometimes.
The next one we'll take a look at here is the very place we are right now. So this is Kennedy School before renovation, circa 1997, right before. And what's interesting to me, does anyone know about the actual paintings on the boards, the boarded windows?
Yep.
You want to tell
What
us?
do you want to know?
Which artist did them?
Asaka did them. Asaka and his family painted these boards on the outside of the school, and the neighborhood association was fighting to save the building. And you probably know more history than I do, but that's what I remember.
Yeah, I think that's and so what's funny is that this is graffiti in the abandoned building, much like Edgefield, which is funny because it says Razor X, which is also found in Edgefield. Things tag, and then that was so this is one from Edgefield, Racer X, and then that was actually turned into artwork about. And this one is by Joe Cover.
Yeah.
So anyway, going back to Kennedy School, so just take a glimpse of the before and after here. You've been in the hotel rooms that used to be classrooms, the old rundown classrooms. And here it is. The old cafeteria and courtyard restaurant now. And so you were talking about when Tim Hills and the history department started really thoroughly researching each location. And so this one is a mural here at Kennedy School that you did, Jenny.
Yeah, it's a picture of my idea of the way Kennedy, the neighborhood looked before, or when Kennedy School was first built in 1911. And there were no, I always look for photographs of the time of the topography. And there were no overall pictures that I could find in the neighborhood. So I collected stories and kind of pieced it together. For example, there were bits and pieces. I knew there was an orchard on, I think it was on Simpson. And there was a place where the gypsies always camped when they came into town.
Here's another one that is for Kennedy School.
Yeah.
I never thought of that. People say, which way was it going? It's something I remember my fifth grade teacher said, listen, you really have to pay attention because when I talk, it doesn't just go into the top of your head. Pretty literal translation.
So, and kind of looking at some of Jenny's work here, this is interesting to me because it shows kind of the process. Can you tell us more about finding the inspiration from the actual stories and how you translate that into a new image?
This was a man named Dr. Hebel, and this was in Anderson School, and he was a graduate of the school, and he went on to become a very prestigious doctor, and he invented the I was gonna say pacemaker. It's not a pacemaker.
Was it a valve?
Pardon me?
Was it the valve?
No, the machine that it measures like.
Oh.
Like a cardiogram?
I don't know.
EKG.
EKG.
Okay.
Anyway, he ended his career in Texas at university, and I just thought he was so instrumental in the science of enabling people with heart issues to live longer. That I wanted to put a picture of the heart behind him. But apparently, I think some people find that disturbing to have in their room. I think it's a rather beautiful thing.
And then here's a picture of Myrna with some pictures here. Can you tell us about how you translate the history into your artwork?
Well, I back then I would we would get pictures of the stories, and I would find things that interested me, and you can see I have a lot of inspiration for the piece I'm working on, taped up, and I pull it down and copy bits and pieces, and I still do that, but we use computers a lot more now. So instead of pieces of paper taped everywhere on the wall, I have a computer getting paint all over it. That's copy, but
So much like the Dr. Hebelhoff, who was a graduate of Bothell High School, which is not Anderson School. This is a picture of the first graduating class of Bothell High School, 1912.
one of their reunions, yeah.
So you have a lot of interesting art that looks like a woodcut. Can you tell us what your technique is there?
Well, when I started tonight, I said I had a master's of fine arts in printmaking, and my medium was woodcuts. So every once in a while, I get a wild hair that I need to do an image that uses that same kind of language. Well, Mike McMenamin doesn't want prints of anything; he just wants one. So I found my own way around it. Oftentimes, I would actually paint on panels, and I would actually carve the panel, paint it all white, and then roll it up with black paint. So it looks like a woodcut, only it's the actual block. The one that I like, this is a woodcut. The one before, I actually used a little squeeze bottle with paint and used that for the language. But it's all kind of the same thing, that black and white.
This is an example. I think it's just so interesting how versatile your art is in so many different styles.
Some people would say schizophrenic.
So this is Edgefield, of course. And then there's two different ones that I just wanted to show here of Frankie Baker. Can you tell us about this one?
So the one that you just went past is the piece for the art for the room that's named after me and Ben. And so it's a little bits and pieces of different paintings that I've done. Like the border is a border from Kennedy School. But the woman is Frankie Baker, and she just has captured my imagination. And the next painting is the first time I painted her. And she's got a really interesting story. She was very important in the Black community in Portland and was recognized for doing a lot of good work. But most of us know her from a song that was written about her, Frankie and Johnny. And she lived at Edgefield, and she spent a good deal of her life trying to get compensated because she never saw a dime from any of the music that was written supposedly about her life, and so that was always a thorn. Something she struggled for was to get some compensation for that, and it was never really realized. And so when I painted her with gold leaf behind her because I feel like she was a very wealthy woman in a lot of ways, and that she had given the community a lot. So really like Frankie.
This is my favorite of your paintings, Myrna.
Thank you. I just painted Frankie as Ruby.
Recently?
Yeah.
Just now?
Like, for the last 3 weeks. You'll have to go to the new Polana building to see when it happens.
So sticking with Edgefield for a minute, I have this one here that Cleo, you said this was the first piece you did for McMenamins?
Yeah, so this is my first painting that I did for McMenamins, and I did it in the winter of 2015, 2016. I was hired in January 2015 when we were opening Anderson School in Buffalo, and after some training, my job was to prime 72 headboards with my coworker Snada, who'd been there at the same time. And then I was painting headboards for people because there were 72 headboards. And then once I kind of like got my legs under me for that, I painted this portrait for Edgefield, which is of John Dennison, who was the farm manager at Edgefield when it was a poor family. So I made him with a towel because towels are nice to paint. And what I remember about that, Jenny was my mentor when I first started this job, and I remember Jenny, maybe you don't remember this, but I painted it, and like others have said, I did not identify as a painter before I got this job. I had a lot of experience drawing, and so I thought, hey, you do a drawing and you use paint to color it in. And I learned on this project that that's not really how it works. And I had painted a portrait of him, and Jenny told me, his face looks really flat. There needs to be more texture and more dimension. And it was really my training wheels for learning how to paint people and just learning how to paint. So I think I've made some strides since then. It's hard for me to look at.
The other thing I kind of paired it up with is an article in the Oregon Sunday Journal from 1914. It was a kind of a feature on the actual Edgefield farm, and he reminded me of the man and the cow here. I think might have been a depiction of him himself. And then you were talking about the headboards. So here's a picture.
Yeah, so here are the headboards I mentioned. This photo is at the jail, which is owned by McMenamins and is on the Edgefield property. If you've ever lined up for a concert, you've probably stood nearby. And so at that time, we were using that space to paint the headboards because they're too big to put in anybody's car or take to anybody's studio. So this is actually a photo from a later project, but it gives an example of sometimes they're propped on like 5-gallon buckets just because we have so much in a small space. Yeah, this is an easel.
And then so this is the final result here of the beautiful headboards, and
These are my favorite headboards I ever did. Painting headboards is really fun because it's part of making the hotel room look cohesive. So we paint these portraits first, or they're usually portraits, and then we paint the headboards and the borders in the bathroom, and any other sort of little artwork that we put in the room. We try to pair that with the portrait that we painted. So using the same colors, using similar design elements, but also we typically don't paint more people. We try to make them a little more decorative. So they're kind of in between a border like we do in the restaurants or in the restrooms, and the portraits that we paint.
And then, Eona, this is the first piece you did?
Very first piece I ever did, what was this, 2010? Yeah, I also was an illustrator learning how to paint. It was the flood at Wilsonville. I think I did a great job with the duck. That's also hard to look at, especially that fish. Oh, she is pretty good too.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing to go from this, which I love,
This is like a 2-foot
this.
square.
There,
Oh yeah, this is one. This is the one I did for High Street Public Meeting, 2021. They had a fire and needed to renovate the entire hub. Lost a lot of art. But it was really kind of amazing to go in and historically document High Street hub, which has been there 3 years. I mean, for the older ones. So this is my painting of the Oregon Country Fair. We did not look at Joe Potter's painting. It would be different, but somehow it's a lot of the same character.
One of my favorite things about this painting is that if you look underground into the tree roots, you'll see the beer kettles here.
Yeah.
Which is amazing because those are real ones that are painted just like that.
Yeah, it's because fewer strokes.
Which brings me to the fact that not only are all the rooms and walls and borders and everything painted so beautifully, but so are the beer kettle.
Those are the ones that we did right before COVID.
That's the last thing you did before COVID, so that's, yeah.
Great.
So, and this is one, the Crystal Ballroom Brewery, which also showed the mosaic work here. Do you know the story behind this lady here?
Well, that was mine, and that is, there's a lot of decorative stuff on it, but that was a nod to the Roma people who, used to have huge events at the Crystal Ballroom. And so, there you go. That was, it seems like there was a picture of her in the history Tim gave us. I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure that the portrait was from an old picture, because he did quite a bit of research and found out that the cemetery over off of Fremont, the 50th, there's a huge section of Roma burials there. But anyway, it was a huge part of Portland history that I didn't know. So it was pretty cool. And then of course I go so long.
And of course, this is a historical figure on the beer brewery as well.
Yeah, Lyle did that one.
Lola Baldwin, the police officer who was cracking down on dancing and drinking, and now she's here.
That was Lyle's sense of humor, so
And then of course Jerry Garcia, which will pop up in lots of artwork around McMenamins, the Grateful Dead, actually. But before we get past the breweries, I just wanted to point this out because I just think it's so astounding that even corners that the public are not necessarily going to see, they're still decorated so beautifully. You can see the Egyptian art here, Greek inspired.
That's great. That mural that's inside the brewery, that is the story of making beer, right? I'm gonna tell a story and don't correct me if I get it wrong. It was painted by Joe Potter. Because it was painted in a brewery, and breweries are very wet environments. After a few, I don't know how many years, maybe 20 years, but it started to deteriorate. But Joe's wife, Kalia Bush, has also been an artist with McMenamins for years, and she and their son, who's also an artist, recreated the entire mural. And I believe the way they did that was with like a wallpaper technique.
They used Tyvek. Tyvek and painted it off-site and then installed it.
So as a way of restoring it, yeah.
But that was, again, you have to think back, early days of McMenamins, Mike just wanted us to paint on everything. And since then, we've learned it's really bad to paint borders in breweries because they don't stick on the walls. It's kind of like the don't paint when it's too cold for the paint to dry. It's like, if the walls are gonna be wet, it might not be a good idea to do elaborate works of art. We didn't know that, so we just painted on everything.
So I wanted to fast forward a little bit to the Elks Temple here, and this piece by Lillian. Can you tell us about this one?
So this is called the 11th Hour, and basically the elves, the benevolent of the elves. What is the P?
The benevolent order,
All right.
protected order.
Okay, so they have this toast they do at the 11th hour that basically is calling upon all the past members, and there's a lot of different variations of the toast, but essentially it's like you might be forgotten at any other time of the day, but when the clock hits 11, we remember you. And essentially every character here, save the man with the mustache, they are members of the Elks Temple in Tacoma. And the guy with the mustache, he was the one of the original Jolly Quarts, which is what the Elks, like before the Elks, there was the Jolly Quarts in New York, and he started the order of but basically, the biggest thing about this was that when I read about the toast, I was like, we're basically making the entire building into a continuous 11th hour, where we are continuously toasting the past, and we are continuously being summoned.
So these little things at the Spanish ballroom at the Elks Temple before renovation.
It doesn't have the swing in it, but there was a swing in it for near the Elks.
And after. So since that's the stage of the Spanish ballroom, this is also on the stage of the Spanish ballroom.
And this is basically the history of drag at the Elks, because the original Elks Lodge, they had these extravaganzas that they would do where they put on full drag shows, and they were definitely like different in the 50s. And then later we had in the 80s, like basically they the local community would have, what are they called? They're like
The Barony Ball?
Barony Ball, but it's also like terms for it, where it's like it's a pageantry, and they usually would have it like under code name so that like the rest of the community didn't know that it was happening.
Yeah, drag was eating.
Yeah. So I want to combine them, and then the featured lady is Gracie Hansen, who she's there because she came and promoted her part of the World's Fair up in Seattle, where they unveiled the Space Needle. Basically, she heard about it and was like, I want to save the World's Fair from science. I want to bring sex and cotton candy. And she is just this amazing, fabulous figure who did. Yeah, like she's a goddess. Like, I'm grateful though.
Kind of like Mae West.
But she had her own drag show over in Norton. She actually made it for the PTA and got kicked out and had some performance stuff. She's both like kind of there's a lot of mixed media about her. To me, she's a hero completely. I love her, everything about her. But she definitely was just like there's like a sort of street of sin at the Space Needle, like underneath it, and they had these. Her show was like Paradise, like Evening in Paradise, Evening in Paradise, something like that. And that's the reason why she's shoving an apple in Joe Cohen's face.
So, and here's the real Joe Cohen, aka DeLorean Snow, the drag persona here at the actual Barony Ball. And what I find really interesting is that to commemorate the drag shows at the Barony Ball in the 70s and 80s and the gay community, then you all kind of did your own version of different drag queens here. So this one here is Joe Cohen again. What can you tell us about the scenes and the corners of this painting?
Yeah, so just to kind of build off of what Lillian was saying, by the time the 80s rolled around, Elks Lodge was not very well kept, and so a lot of people who were not welcome in other venues would have their events there, and that includes the queer community.
Because the Elks Lodge had moved out.
Right, the Elks, thank you, the Elks were no longer there. So that's right. And so this was actually the only venue where the queer community could have their drag events and their annual Barony Ball. So anyways, this is DeLorean Snow, one of the drag queens from that era, who I got to meet at the opening for the hotel, which was a delight.
There she is there with the
Yeah.
different paintings.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought that I sort of my painting was trying to express how it was a refuge for people. And it was kind of, the 80s were a really difficult time if you were gay for many reasons, including HIV and AIDS. And I wanted to kind of allude to some of that hardship in the corners. And as I think Lillian said, drag shows were illegal at the time, or maybe Eona said that. So I have these sort of black and white shadows in the corners, and then down at the bottom, I painted. These are all drag queens from photos from that time, and I painted them in bright colors to show that it was. I mean, also to reference the rainbow, but to show that it was this place of celebration where they could put their troubles behind them and just enjoy each other's company and dance and sing and wear whatever they wanted, and so that's DeLorean Snow just singing their heart out.
So I want to look through these a little bit. You have so much to go over, so that's, of course, is the real Joe Cohen. And then this one is by Myrna, John Reed and Kenny Olson, who are also part of that community.
Yep.
And then this
It's pretty self-explanatory.
fabulous one by Eona there.
That was Marvin Ness, also known as Julie Montaigne, who actually was the founder of the Barony Ball with the Tacoma Elks location in 1975. And this painting is amazing. Look at that dress, my gosh. Because all the photos that I used for the party in the background and stuff came when Marvin passed away right before the temple was worked on, and all of these photos, pamphlets, invitations, historical archive things were found in his estate, and we never would have seen that if he had not passed away and our history department had not reached out and found this treasure trove of information. It's really, that was a really interesting thing to paint, actually. It was, I just felt really honored to do it. And I met DeLorean Snow and a bunch of other drag queens who gave me a little pin to commemorate one of the barony balls from the Brooklyn's where Julie Montague was finally crowned Queen of the Barony after 20 years.
Well, where you put the crown, right on the icon.
Strictly secret. I think that's 3 rings at least.
So I wanted to also mention that not only is it just the paintings and murals, but lots of different other artistic endeavors are part of your work here. So this is Lillian, right?
Yeah, I believe that Mike has actually said that we're never doing that again. But it was really fun. Like I lived in Tacoma, so I was there. Well, I still live in Tacoma. Like, so I was there and able to come in like early to do lots of weird things, and I just really wanted to color those. As soon as I saw them, they definitely were very peely and didn't really like paint. But haven't gotten any complaints about them yet, so probably except one. Like a week after opening, someone did knock down the head of one of those. And I had to reveal it.
And then you also do graphics. How many of you also do that? Like graphics and advertising kind of.
I do graphic, just Lillian.
Oh, okay. Because I love these. So this is the map of the Hotel Oregon.
I originally started with the Elks because the Elks is extremely confusing to navigate. And I was like, okay, I have this idea of like how to visually lay it out in a way that's a little less confusing. I'm not going to say that this necessarily helps everybody. But it might help somebody. At least, I mean, part of the thing is like when you go to the Elks, you may not know that there's like 3 other bars other than the top and the bottom. Like there's so much there, and it feels like amazing. If you happen to go back into the hotel rooms, like you literally can't get out for a while if you don't know what hallway to go back through. Yeah, there's a lot of staircases.
So you did this one first and then the one for Hotel Oregon?
Yeah, and all the locations want them now. So that's fine. It's on the back burner. There's 2 in the works. But yeah, this one was really, really fun to do, just to explore the entire space. It's definitely a head trip trying to visualize a dollhouse version of the space that is not confusing. It's not confusing.
Everyone was in camera. That's true. That's it.
Let's see. The original Hammerhead here. Speaking of the history, so Hammerhead beer came out in 1986, and then the logo was done by Lyle in 92, and that's the original one there.
And it still hangs in the Mall 205 Club.
So one of the most impressive, amazing things to me about all of your work is how much you collaborate and work on even just like one large piece together. So I wanted to ask you about this. Now this looks small, right? Just looking at it here, the Baghdad Theater, but it's backstage. And so this is actually half beauty.
Now,
Now, Ginny and Murray, you worked on that, right?
Yeah, I did the basic design, and there were 7 artists working on this. So I divided it into 7 basic areas. The smoke, because it is the Baghdad, and this was a Latin saloon, and smoke coming out. That it was an opportunity to divide it up, and then we all had a section, and somehow it all worked, and it was really fun. Olivia Bean did the bottom section. She's an artist who did a lot of work with us for several years. But she did not like to go up on scaffolding.
Just got a bottom.
She got the bottom. And then, Myrna, Lyle, Olivia, Joe, and me. Who else?
It's one and one.
Lion Bush. So,
So I was
it's
on
really
top. Yeah, every time I had to look down when Jenny was painting and make sure if I was doing something detailed, because Jenny, I learned on that project, scrubs all her painting. And so I'd be trying to do a thin line and Jenny would start scrubbing, and it was a canvas. We weren't used to working on it. It was a canvas that was hanging, so she started scrubbing the whole thing and started doing like a drum. So I'd actually look down, she wasn't painting, and go ahead.
I didn't realize how much how physical I am. It was really impressive to see them install that canvas because it had to be stretched. It was really something.
It's still there now, backstage bar. Who's seen it? Lots of you, yeah, awesome. Let's see here, there's just so much art I wanted to highlight here. So this one here is at Edgefield. And the interesting thing about a lot of the art is that you put real people into them, right?
Yeah, so something that most of you probably don't know is that McMenamins honors the employees that have worked long-term for the company by doing something that they call a 15-year dinner. And then if you work 20 years and 25 years and 30 years and on, you get to go to these special events. And they're kind of not talked about. You know about the 15-year dinner, but it's not really talked about. But it really kind of is a very special event because I think it encompasses a lot of what is special about McMenamins. They have a lovely dinner, and there's speeches about the McMenamins, about how grateful they are for everything that everyone has done, and there are gifts and wine is giving. You know, they put out special wines and present them to the people, the honorees, and it's a really, really special event, and it's really near and dear to Mike McMenamins' heart. And I did this painting very recently for me. I think it was in the last year, and I tried this. I was painting this at the time that Lyle died, so I put a lot of nods to Lyle in the painting. But the center table is from a photo that I took at the 15-year dinner that I attended, and so there's sort of portraits, but they're sort of not, in that they're meant to represent the employees in general. And so we've got Ruby, we've got the jester from the Crystal Ballroom, recurring suns, Lyle's green stars. Mike McMenamin always passes out a book to everyone. He picks out a novel and gives it to everyone who attends, and he has a reason for it, and it's always different. So, yeah. So that's my take on something that's very special for the company.
So what's interesting to me also is when I can see a glimpse of the process, because for instance, this mural here, and is it a mural or a painting? It's pretty big. It's big. So thinking about how on earth do you plan these out? So this is your like key, right,
It's
to
my
the
key that I-
mainstream.
For it's everyone is somebody. And it started with the fountains of Aranias in Madrid, which was the inspiration for Miles Davis' Sketches of Spain album, which was inspiration for the Grateful Dead Spanish trio. And then the Elks Temple has the Spanish Steps. And
There you go.
the fountain of that's at the foot of the Spanish Steps that's in Rome, I have put at the foot of these Spanish Steps. And it's Spain, it's Barcelona, and it's
This is the gaudy church of here.
the little shell in the sky is from Miles Davis's Sketches of Spain record, and there's characters from the Alps and the Grateful Dead, of course. There's the drag band from the Alps. And the whole thing is just orchestra stuff.
Cool.
That was one of the first things I did actually before I really even knew the history. I was just pulling faces, history of all different characters.
So I also wanted to show a couple of paintings that directly reference some history. So this is also one of yours. Right?
Was painting. It's the Strawberry Festival in Cloverdale, right outside Palermo. The Palermo history. It's all. I don't know. We're all real people from the history.
So what's interesting though is that they're all real people. Also, see the strawberry shortcake float back there?
Yeah. Yes.
That was the real thing too.
Yes.
You can't make this stuff up.
Yes.
So and then another real life character here is Gloria Hehn.
Gloria Listen, yeah, she was amazing. She's really fun to paint. She's actually in that Spanish Steps painting too.
Yeah, she was a national champion drum majorette,
Yeah.
and she was marched with the Tacoma House Band and lots of other marching bands around Washington. There's one of yours.
She's up in the corner there, doing the Spanish dance.
So of the Olympic Club.
Yeah, I had totally forgotten that. Yeah, the Olympic Club. They had a barber shop. They had a cafe. They had gambling. And they had a gigantic pool hall. The Olympic Club was established in
Centralia, Washington. Yeah,
Centralia, I was gonna say Center.
yeah.
Centralia, and it was established during the early 20th century. And it was a place to go for loggers. There were miners, loggers, and miners, what else were there? But anyway, they would come there on the weekend, they could cash their check, they could stay there at the hotel, or they could play pool, have a beer, or they could gather by, there was a beautiful old wood stove that's still there. And the tulip motif was repeated throughout. There were a lot of Tiffany glasswood fixtures that had that motif in them. Lamps.
That was painted right up there.
Yeah.
And then you can see the bartender here was inspired by the historical painting here. That was in 1913.
You know, it was an amazing place because when we went there, it had a basement that was full of different things, whenever they finished using something, they put it in the basement.
It's still like that.
And one of the
There's more stuff now.
one of the artists I worked with was a great guy named Scott Young. He worked with us for a couple of years. And he was just almost like a spelunker. He had to go down there and go through that place. And there was this little, I don't know if it was a safe that just opened up. We found a little bag of gold dust. Brought it to mind. And the first night I was there, I was just, it was kind of a scary place in a way to start there. It was alone. No, it wasn't alone yet. We were just getting used to this place, and I looked down, and it looked like there was a quarter on the floor, and I picked it up. And it was a quarter, but it was from 1895. The place was full of these weird, we found a room upstairs that had been walled off. We didn't know there was a room there. Remember that room?
I've forgotten that.
Yeah.
Spooky.
It also had a thing, it also had under they found where the booze would come up under the fire during prohibition. So the booze would have been down in the basement and there was a special spot to get your drink.
This one's from Chapel Pub. So this is O.B. Dawson, who was a iron craftsman. And I just love how you made a painting of him in action, kind of inspired from the photo here of him with his wrought iron gate, I guess. That ironwork is still at the Chapel Pub.
Yeah, he was really, they couldn't figure out how he did some of his artwork. It was quite unique and creative. And I believe he did some of the work on Timberline Lodge. I think he was one of the artists and craftsmen. And the really weird thing about him is that he's also an opera singer.
Right in the corner there. It's like you painted him as the opera singer. So, can you tell us about this one?
Sure, it's in Bend, and Father Cleo Hehn managed to convince the nuns to come and not only staff the hospital, St. Charles Hospital, which they started, but also teach in the school. And at the time, the nuns wore full regalia, full habits, and I thought I'd play, just jokingly call this Nun's Day Off. So, because do you remember this TV show? I don't remember it, The Flying Nun. Anyway. So I just thought, this is their day off, they're flying in, and they're gonna have a big.
So,
I had fun with that.
yeah, I love that. And then if you've ever been to Old St. Francis in Bend, there's a lot of interesting artwork inspired by the Catholic school that used to be there. I wanted to highlight some of the newer work that you guys had collaborated on. So this was the artwork inspired by Terrapin Station at the Old Church and Pub in Wilsonville, Oregon. And how many of you were working on that one?
That was Cleo and I did all the square panels, and Myrna did the mandala and the butterfly. It's the story of the song around the walls.
Yeah.
Grateful Dead.
Yeah, it's a Grateful Dead song, and unlike so many of the work where we're painting from history, this is one where we were given a song to work from. It's like a 3-part song. Oh, I wrote down the names. Lady with the Fan,
There's me.
Terrapin Station, and Out of Sighting are the names of the songs. And we chose to illustrate the lyrics to the music with our own imagery, because the lyrics are very evocative. So we sort of are telling this imaginative story of what the song is about that we just kind of got to make up. So like this one, the line is, the crickets and the cicadas sing. We typically don't paint giant insects. That's kind of a no-no. And so I wanted to paint crickets and cicadas. So I painted them sort of as dancers flying through the sky. But when I initially painted it, they had big bug eyes. Especially the cicada. I was excited to paint these big red cicada eyes. And I was told, maybe people wouldn't love that in the background of their wedding. So I changed it. But yeah, it was a really fun project. That space, I don't know if you've ever been in the old church at Wilsonville, but it has beautiful stained glass. It was the glass had been broken because the building was unused. And so the artist David Schlicker, who works with McMenamins a lot in doing stained glass work, repaired them and included these jewels. They're called jewels, but it's like faceted glass. And so if you're in there when we were in the afternoon, it scatters rainbows all over the room. It was such a beautiful place to work because it was just like light flying everywhere, and rainbows landing on your painting when you least expect it. Yeah, it was a really fun project. There was art there originally. Myrna, do you want to talk about what that was, or Jenny?
Well, that was so we paid for Mike McMenamins pretty much. He's the guy with the vision, and we try to bring his vision forward. And he goes through stages of where he likes certain things and then he doesn't like certain things. And the stage when we initially did Wilsonville, that he was in, he wanted everything very subtle. So there were just decorative panels with Jenny painted some just lovely flowers. They were really quite beautiful, but they were very, very subtle. And then Mike walked in 2022 after COVID and said, "This has got to change." So it went the other way. It went really bright and vibrant. So
Lyle called it our garish phase. But I love it.
This brings up an interesting point in that I've learned in this job not to get too attached because things change and what you like and things change and the tastes change and you have to go with the flow and let it go. I've always said murals are the most ephemeral art form because murals can change in a heartbeat. You don't know, especially an exterior mural. I'm kind of getting off topic here. You don't know what will happen, if it will be, whether we'll take it, if a new owner comes in and fires it up. I don't know.
I think it's actually a perfect segue because this is a mural that I painted, and it originally, so Myrna mentioned back in 1993 or 4, Mike had, the artists all painted 100-foot sections in that river art on the 3rd floor of Edgefield. And then in 2019, there was a flood at Edgefield, and some artwork was damaged, but more was Jennings, actually. And it was really, it became an opportunity for us to revitalize some of the artwork in the building. And so even though this was not damaged, there was a mural there previously, and Mike asked me to paint it over with the new painting. And so Eona and I both painted out 100-foot stretches in that hallway. As part of that,
We wanted to represent the new history because all of the artwork at Edgefield was previous history before movements. And he wanted, there's now been, 30 years of McMenamins history, a lot of it music. So we
40 years, yes.
I kept it for a long time. I was talking about how I'd been working here for 10 years, and the next thing I know, it's 20 years. So.
I think is really exciting about this one is the music mural
Right.
of bands that have played Edgefield concerts on the lawn. So
Yeah.
as you can see in
In a
here,
river.
yeah, is that the Avett Brothers up on the roof here? I think.
It's the Avett Brothers, Adele, Further, the Grateful Dead offshoot band. Ken Kesey over in the corner there.
And then it's the people that we know, non-famous people as well. So, like, if you look at the detail, there's really cute. This
I don't think it's see my note. I was gonna pay Decemberist and didn't. I painted in a different spot. So this is who was the hotel manager at the time we were working there. And this is Kimberly Kincaid, who has been the gardener at Edgefield since Edgefield began. She and her former husband, Patrick McMenamins, were really created Edgefield literally from the ground up. So if you experience their gardens, that's it. I mean, if you love them like I do, that's because of the work of Kim and Patrick, who Kim still is the gardener at Edgefield, and Patrick does gardens and some of the other properties. So it's sort of some unsung heroes from kind of nice.
I actually painted Patrick in my third floor mural in the employee apartment.
Right. You also planted employees, and in my case, most of my family has been an employee of McMenamins. So in that very first slide, that this one, I wanted to show a wedding party sort of at the end of the night because Edgefield's a lovely wedding spot. And I attended my cousin Emily's wedding there. And so in the corner over on the right, there's a bride and groom, and that's my cousin and her husband. And my partner and me are dancing there in the corner. My parents are dancing. We're moving to the left here. My aunt and uncle Lyle are dancing. My brother and his now ex-partner, my cousins, and then some other coworkers who are not my family. But it was a really lovely opportunity to represent people that I love, who are also really important to what makes this company great.
So I made a little collage here since there's so many characters peeking through as we're walking through all of those hallways where that wonderful mural is. That you'll probably see some more recognizable faces in this one. So we have Bob Dylan going clockwise. We've got Bob Dylan, Bonnie Raitt, Jack White, Ringo Starr, Lizzo, Stevie Wonder, and Blondie, and Shirley Manson from Garbage. Right? Yes. Which is
I didn't remember her name, so I'm glad you did.
it just blows my mind, like walking through those hallways and like, oh my god, all these people were really here at Edgefield. And I kind of have a thought. I don't know what you think of this, but sometimes these murals and with all these tiny little people and characters, it reminds me of like, Where's Waldo meets Salvador Dali. But yeah, so. But it's what is it like collaborating on the same piece together? Because a lot of you have done work like, simultaneously.
I think we all have a lot of different skills that we bring to the table, even though I think we all work within a similar style and try to make our artwork pair well with each other. I think we all have different talents and gifts that we like to bring, and I don't know.
There's a language that you learn it as you work here, and the language was written by Jenny and by Myrna and by Lyle and Joe Potter and Elias over the last decades, and we all absorb it, doing the work and being around it and hearing the stories, working side by side with the legends. It just naturally evolves to be one story.
So I want to say something here that I think is really important, that the one thing that I've noticed that is similar between all the artists that have really been successful at working for McMenamins is that we all have this core essential piece about us of liking a challenge. So when Mike says, hey, we're opening a hotel in Deerheart with a golf course, and I have this book written in 1890 about golf, and I'm going to pick sections from it, and I want you guys to do paintings of those based on those writings. all of us go, what?
Here's one of the golf figure.
This is actually golf in the kingdom, which is a different golf. Like a spiritual experience of golf.
So, and that, of course, Grateful Dead.
There's two kinds of people. There's artists that have that presented to them and they go, I do not paint golf pictures. And then there's us who say, I don't paint golf pictures. But if I did, how would I make that work? And that is the core thing that we all share.
And if I may just add one. I just wanted to add too that one of the many gifts of this unique job is getting to work with other artists. Because I think most artists' experience is working in your studio alone. And while we also do that, we each have our own studios and work alone in the studios, it's also such a gift to be able to learn from each other and encourage each other and literally share paint with each other. And that's one of the
Get trapped in a hotel in the snow or painting an elevator.
Exactly. So it's just, that's one of my favorite parts about being an artist from McMenamins is getting to have coworkers who are also artists.
There's so much art. It's so hard to pack it in tonight, just in one evening. But I want to kind of do a little flash slideshow here, just some of the ones that are really interesting. So this one's Salmon Derby in Tacoma. And then it looks like Lillian, this one, Joyce, right?
Yes.
You kind of turned it into a monster movie.
So actually, Tacoma had the first actual octopus wrestling televised in 1996. Don't quote me on dates, but it happened. It wasn't fake. The reason why I was able to wedge that into the Saturn Derby is because that guy, Jerry something, he's one of the main helps guys. Come on. But he actually, there was a picture of him at the Salmon Derby wrestling a dead octopus, and so I was like, I get to do it. Also, Tacoma has the legend of the giant octopus underneath the Narrows Bridge, and so the Salmon Derby doesn't happen by the Narrows Bridge, so that's the giant octopus dragging the old Narrows Bridge into the bay.
Okay, this one's kind of the polar opposite.
This is a regular, or he was a regular. I don't know if he's still a regular, but Robert Kerr, he's a prolific composer who did a lot of music about world peace, but basically he just would go there and spend like until the evenings transcribing and transforming his music, and this is just portrait of him.
So also before we end tonight, I also want to just highlight some of them. There's so many artists that have contributed to all the different locations. There's almost 60 McMenamins locations, including the small pubs to the hotels. So one of the most impressive artists that I'm inspired by myself is Asaka Shamsuddin. And he did a lot of the artwork that was at the Ringlers in the Crystal Ballroom. Can any of you say a little something?
So Asaka got connected with McMenamins through this property because he was had an actual, his studio was just down in Alberta at the time, and he, and as we said, his family was hired to paint art on the boards on the outside of the building, so it wasn't just plain plywood. And then as we opened this property, he did a painting of himself and his wife that hangs in the hallway. And then he went on, Mike and him formed a relationship, and he started painting these fantastic paintings of musicians, that, like you said, most of them have ended up over at Wheeler's, but it's, he is an iconic Portland artist, and so we were very, his contribution to the art of McMenamins is really valued.
He did a lot of the artwork for the Black Soul musicians who played at the Crystal Ballroom in the 50s and 60s, and I think his contribution to showing and representing that community is really amazing, and the color schemes are just beautiful. And this one is really interesting to me as well, but this one is a little different. This one's a Gearhart, and this is Sergeant Moses Williams, who was a Buffalo soldier in the mid-19th century, like post-Civil War in the western states. So I just wanted to highlight that one. And then along with, besides just regular painting, there's so many different forms of art. So this is Jeff Allen, plumbing artist. You probably recognize this. This is in this building here, the boiler room. And then lots of mosaic artists have contributed to the locations. And certainly Witters. More tile art. And you mentioned the stained glass before in different locations. And so here's some pictures I came across of groups of artists who had specifically worked at different locations, but there's lots of overlap.
That's one of my favorite photos of Lyle in the back there with the elephant trunk.
Here's the proof of Crystal Hotel. And that's the Sacra on the right there. And here's one of the latest projects was along River Lawn. I recognize some of you there. So, I just like to thank everybody again. Thank you so much, artists, for joining us tonight. Let's give them a round of applause. Any questions? If anyone has some burning questions, I see a hand over here.
This has been so great. What's your next project?
Kalama there's a building just down the street from the main Kalama building, that is turning into a event space, and we are madly painting as fast as we can. It's supposed to open sometime in
Painting right now.
Yeah, and it's I think it will also be a hub with like shuffleboard and stuff, right? I think it's like a sports bar and event space.
no bedroom, so just event space and drinking space. So
It was actually pretty fun because they were like, for a long time, both Mike and Dan just kept on saying, oh, there's not enough room for paintings. There's not enough room for paintings. And then what, at the end of June? Beginning of June, they're like, oh, 12. And they're giant.
What's me?
Yeah.
Oh, one real time in August. So we're painting quickly.
Wow. Any other questions? Yes?
Are all the other, the lamps and the plumbing and mosaic, are those artists on full time as well as the rest of you?
What you see here is the art department currently. When we have other projects or a bigger scope, then new artists get hired on for various things. Sorry.
it
It's project-based.
It's normally project-based, so people are hired for the length of the project. But then you find gems like Lillian, and she's still here. So that happens. I've worked when there's 20 artists, and that's not including the mosaic. Right now because of COVID and because we're the last department to really come back online because you gotta have other things before so we're down to, the 4 or 5 of us. So it changes.
Let's see if I can come up any questions way back here. I see everyone over here. I've seen multiple copies of certain paintings around, so I'm curious, when you create a new piece of art, do you have to make multiples?
Hear this one? We started just a few years ago. I think it was with Ben. Was that when we started doing reproductions? The thing about painting a painting for a hotel room is the only people who get to see the painting is the people who rent out the hotel room. So for the project where we added 2 new buildings to the Old St. Francis School in Bend, the idea was to make high quality reproductions of the paintings and put them in the hallways. So they do look like originals, but they're actually just very high quality prints. And they're in frames too, so that they're a little more accessible to folks who aren't necessarily renting out the hotel room. And then I think another reason why we might see a lot of repetition is because when we paint, we're always borrowing from this history of McMenamins art. So we're painting a figure that Lyle painted in a painting that's at this property. We're putting it in a different property with the figure that Myrna painted from somewhere in Washington. And so we're always kind of refolding these characters and symbols back into our work.
Plus, they have some poster art that Jess will get reviewed repeatedly because it's beloved.
Not so much a question, but a comment, and maybe you know who it is. But a few years ago, probably 5, 7, I was down at Thompson Brewery, and got to tour the brewery because the brewer had a brief moment, and apparently the woman who did all the work on the tanks there, the mash tun stuff, was their mom.
Yeah.
Jen's mom.
It's Jen's mom, yeah. Well, sometimes with a company this big, you can't get everywhere, and anomalies like that happen. Jen had a mom, and she needed painting done in her room, and she said, "Can my mom paint my room?" And he said, "Sure, why not? We can't get there," and that's weird things like that happen in this company.
And Jen is the brewer, right?
Yes,
Yeah, so the brewer
Jen is the brewer.
That's awesome. Any other questions way back here? I don't see any hands. Okay, we'll take a couple more. We won't keep you here all night, I promise.
Just a quick one. One thing that is fascinating are the elbows, the plumbing elbows. They haven't mentioned those at all. We were talking about elbows.
What elbows?
Want to do that one? Oh, yeah.
So my understanding, and I wasn't around at the time, but was that the first pipe oval was painted by my Uncle Lyle, and it was in the power station, right? So the power station is that pub that's the separate building at Edgefield, and on the second floor are the first McMenamins hotel rooms. Yeah, there are 8 rooms up there, and that's where Lyle just decided to paint a little face on the elbow, and that really caught on. And now it's to a point where, like today, I was in the restroom here, and I said, "Uh-oh, found a pipe that needs a face." So we're sort of constantly adding them. I think it's like fun. It's like a little Easter egg. People don't notice it first, and then all of a sudden, oh, there's a little guy staring at me.
All right. Well, if you can't get enough art, make sure you check out even just down the halls here around every McMenamins you go to, and check it out online, McMenamins history. Thank you everyone for joining us, and we hope to see you back at the next Story Talk.